Going to John Fund. Watch this.
Young faculty member. In a lot of places, if you're a young member of a news department and you have the wrong views, meaning conservative, you have no career. This is just the most open, blatant example of the new fascism, which says, if you don't agree with us 100%, we have the right to punish you, unless you're like Hillary and like Barack Obama, and you recant. So they both had the same view in 2008 as he did.
All right, folks, and joining us now, as promised, is John Fund, and he is a national affairs columnist for National Review Online, Newsmax contributor, and senior editor at the American Spectator. Hello, sir.
A pleasure. Thanks, Steve.
Always great to talk to you, my friend. All right, so you wrote a great piece at National Review Online about Mr. Eich and his fate, as it were, because, I mean, you know, John, I can't believe we're actually sitting here talking about this. I mean, the guy gave a check 6 years ago. No hint of treating gay employees differently or using gay slurs or anything. He exercised his right to be involved in the political, I guess the political process in this country. And for it, he's now lost his job.
Well, it's the new rules. And there's 3 zones that you cannot touch and say anything that's against the PC orthodoxy, or else it will cost you. And those are race, and those are the environment, and those are gay rights. Yeah,
well, you know, and you might want to add women to that as well, because now they're starting to go after our friend General Hayden based on what he said about, he used the word emotional, describing Dianne Feinstein, and they are just all over him. How dare you treat a woman that way and say emotional? And that's what's going to happen when Hillary runs. But let's stick to this here. You know, I'm of the opinion, John, that if the American public were heard on this, if every American could write a letter or send an email or send a tweet or make a phone call to this company Mozilla about how they felt on the issue, they'd hire this guy back in about a half a second. But it's only the organized, radical, you know, groups that have this letter writing capability and organization to put pressure on these groups that make it look like everything's lopsided, when in fact it's not that way at all.
Well, look, I believe companies have a right to hire or fire whomever they wish, but I think Mr. Eich, if he wanted to make a legal case of this, actually has a decent argument. California Labor Code makes it illegal to fire an employee because he's donated money to a political campaign. To the extent employers want to follow in Mozilla's footsteps by policing their employees' politics in the interest of culture or inclusiveness or corporate branding, they should be aware that their efforts may violate California law.
Yeah, and you know, as you point out in your column, the new Pitchfork Persecutors, Eich is not the only victim that, you know, here under these circumstances.
Well, back in 2012, there was a woman named Angela McCaskill, and she was a very accomplished lady, African-American, who graduated. In fact, she was the first African-American to get a PhD from Gallaudet University, which is the federal school for the deaf in Washington, D.C., and she went on to a very good career there, and she became chief diversity officer. And then in 2012, she went to her local church. She happens to be religious, and she saw a petition there as to whether or not the gay marriage law in Maryland, which had been passed just by the legislature and signed by the governor, should go before the people for a vote. And she signed the petition. She never took a public stand on gay marriage one way or the other. And because of the Washington Blade, which was a gay newspaper, published a searchable database where you could hunt down and find exactly who had signed the petition and where they lived, she was confronted by her colleagues at Gallaudet University, accused of bias, accused of being homophobic, and she was placed on 3 months' leave. And finally, after an outcry and outrage, she was reinstated, but she lost several of her titles, and she was effectively demoted, and she's now suing the university for discrimination.
How was the name revealed? I've heard that it's all public record, and then I've heard that the IRS leaked this. Somebody leaked it to the Human Rights Campaign, and that's how they knew. So, which is it? Is donations such as these, and you address this in your piece, are donations such as these easily, recordable and retrievable?
Not normally. but we've seen, remember that New York newspaper in Westchester County that published the names of all the New Yorkers who had concealed gun carry permits?
Yeah.
And they basically had to back down. That was outrageous because they were subjecting the people to, shall we say, intimidation and perhaps even crime. The Los Angeles Times created a searchable database for all the donors to Prop 8 in California to supposedly make it easier for people to find out who was behind it. But it included everybody who contributed over $100. So that's a pretty wide net. It's like 35,000 people. So there were some activists who had too much time in their hands who went through and found every single person that they thought had a position of responsibility and started complaining to their employers. You know, this guy contributed to a traditional marriage initiative. So I don't know if there was a leak or anything, but if you wanted to find out if Brendan Eich had contributed to Prop 8, all you had to do is go to the Los Angeles Times' searchable database. Normally, such donor lists are not easily found. I mean, you can get them, but not with the ease of a searchable engine.
You know, John, one would think that, as you point out at the end, you would think that liberals who like to rail against the publication of anti-communist blacklists in the 50s would appreciate such arguments as we've been making here. But some of them are cheering on the pitchfork persecutors, or, as happened a lot during the days of the Hollywood blacklist, simply remaining silent. Just another example of liberal hypocrisy?
It was liberals in the 1950s who supported the NAACP. The NAACP was trying to register voters and conduct civil rights marches in the South. And the state of Alabama went and demanded a list of their donors and members. And it was pretty clear from the back and forth between the court unanimously ruled that the state of Alabama did not have the right to the donors and members' names because they would likely be used to block these people from freely associating with each other and fulfilling their political rights.
Do you agree with Bill Maher? I mean, his choice of term used, but is there I'll say what he said, and you could put it in your own terms, a gay mafia that will whack you if they want to?
I only know this case, and I know the cases I wrote about. You know, I can't make broad, sweeping statements about others.
Right. Well, of course, there was the bill on Jan Brewer's desk that somehow somebody got Apple and other companies and even the NFL to threaten to pull the Super Bowl. I'm sure somebody pressured those companies to do what they did, and it's really frightening in this day and age. Do you see it changing or getting worse?
I think this was overreach. I think that when people like Andrew Sullivan, who's the most prominent gay writer,
that was my next question.
in America, you know, calls us a lynch mob. I think there's a realization that, look, I grew up in San Francisco. I can remember when gays were discriminated against. I can remember when gays sometimes lost their jobs unfairly because people just didn't like them. And you know, it's simple human decency, regardless of what the law says. That kind of behavior is atrocious. So it's very sad, and I don't speak. You know, I don't think most gays are like this. I think most gays are appalled, or at least neutral on what happened. But for a few activists to, just because some people were persecuted in the past, to turn into persecutors themselves, what a sad, sad commentary on political tolerance and decency and civility, which supposedly we all want.
Yeah, no, very well put. All right, John, always great to talk to you, my friend. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, and the piece is found at nationalreview.com, and hope you have me on in June when my new book on Eric Holder comes out.
John, we will have you on well before that, but absolutely for the book. I can't wait to read that.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Take care. John Fund, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, I can't wait for that one. John Fund, writing on Eric Holder. That will be a must interview and a must read. All right, folks. I mean, this is just such a, again, you know, such a sad story, a frightening story. And if you, I looked on my computer at home last night. I don't have Firefox. I have Google Chrome, and now I may be naive, and that might be Mozilla. I don't know, but I have Google Chrome and Internet Explorer. So I didn't have anything to try to delete. I wondered that if I had it, would I even know how to delete it? Because I would delete it. If I had Mozilla, Firefox, I would delete it. I would get rid of it in my own way. I'm not going to write, probably not going to write a letter or anything, but that's how I feel. I'm not urging anybody to do anything. But if you're aware of this and this outrages you, you can't sit back and not be proactive, because then you lose. All right, folks, we're coming back with the Malzberg panel. Oh, boy, on the Steve Malzberg Show.
Tonight we are a country awakened to danger and called